This video is going to be about PISD's problem-solving thinking process and the district's problem-solving graphic organizer. What Pearland ISD uses as both their problem-solving thinking process and organizer is Qdpac. The Q stands for question. The D stands for data, the P stands for plan, the A stands for answer, and the C stands for check. And as I said, this process represents two things for us in the district. First of all, it is the thinking process that students go through when they solve any problem in the classroom or outside of the classroom. We want them to see the value of Qdpac in whatever they do. Anytime they have a problem, they have a tool in their toolbox that they can use to think through the problem. So when students come to you and say, Ms. Greer, I don't understand this problem, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, have you used Qdpac? Have you tried Qdpac? Have you identified the problem? Have you figured out all the information the problem gives you? Have you developed a plan and tried it? If you haven't, then that's where we need to start. So when we think about the thinking process of Qdpac, I want us to think of us as adults. Let's say I go home today and my refrigerator is broken. Okay, that is my problem. That is my question. How do I fix this refrigerator? Okay, then my data is whatever it is. In other words, is it my ice machine that is particularly broken? Is it leaking water? Is it not cooling? What is it? Do I have a warranty? Do I not have a warranty? What are all the variables and all the information you can gather about your problem so that you can therefore make a plan to solve it? And that is the next step. Once you have those variables, you figure out what you're going to do. You just need to go buy a new one, or you need to call a refrigerator repairman to come over and fix it. So you make a plan, then you act on the plan, which is the answer. You find out the answer, or you act on the plan, and then you check to see, is my fridge now working? As adults, we go through the Qdpac process automatically. We don't sit there and think about, I'm identifying the question, I'm identifying the data, I'm identifying the plan. We do not do that in our brain because we are problem solvers. Our students are not. So we have to teach them the process that they need to go through when they encounter any type of problem. Qdpac, this thinking process, can be used on any problem students encounter in or outside of school. It can be used with playground issues. It can be used with science questions, social studies questions, a fight they get in with their little sister. This thinking process can be used throughout the students' lives. Okay, so that is the first way we want students to think about this thinking process. The second part of Qdpac is the graphic organizer. When students solve addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division problems, they are required to use some sort of they're required to use the Qdpac process, but they are also required to use some sort of Qdpac graphic organizer to show their thinking while solving addition, subtraction, multiplication, division word problems. And this is the reason why it's only required on those type of problems. Let's say that students on a test or in the classroom or on a classroom assignment are given this cube. And they are asked to find the number of vertices on a cube. Well, the students have to identify what the question's asking them. They have to determine, well, I'm trying to find the number of vertices on a cube. So what is it that vertices means again? So they have to come up with what are vertices. Then they have to make a plan. And in the plan step here is where they're going to use their strategy for finding the number of vertices. They're going to go ahead and do that, okay? So in 4th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, when I'm trying to find vertices of a shape, we always tell kids to draw dots on the corners. So students can then draw those dots and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then the students get their answer, and then they can check their answer. Did I find the number of vertices on the cube? Yes, I did. Okay, so when I'm using this thinking process as a student, I have evidence of that thinking through the strategies that I have. So I can use Qdpac on place value questions, on tables, on graphs, on geometry questions. And I'm using that thinking process, but I'm not writing anything down for Qdpac because my thinking is evidence. I can see evidence of my thinking through the strategy for that particular type of problem. So if I'm a teacher and pick up this paper, I know that students understand that vertices are corners and that they understand, you know, they got the right number of vertices. If I pick up a student's paper and they put 12 vertices, but they have the lines highlighted, I know they weren't counting vertices, they were counting edges. Therefore, they don't understand what those are. I have some sort of evidence of students thinking through their strategy. They're using this process, but the evidence, the proof of their work, the proof of their thinking is in that strategy they're using. With word problems, I don't have any other strategy to hold on to besides Qdpac. So I've got to show that thinking so that when students miss problems, we know how to help them because we can determine in which step are they confused. Can they not identify, they don't have any comprehension of the problem and they have no idea what the problem's asking them. Did they put extra information or didn't put enough extra information? Or they still lack understanding because they're just adding numbers together or subtracting them? Did they not pull out the right thing? Do they not understand the actions in the story or what's going on? Once again, these three kind of deal with comprehension. Did they get all of this correct, but then their computation was wrong? So by them using Qdpac in the classroom on everything they do, then showing it, evidencing their Qdpac through while they're doing word problems, we can determine how to help our students. Okay? Now the requirement for Pearland ISD is that all teachers teach the Qdpac lessons at the beginning of the year, and that throughout the year as teachers come across any type of word problem in the classroom, they are modeling this process for students by writing down the information and modeling how it looks when students should do it in the classroom. But as a teacher, you're also using Qdpac daily. You're referring to it every time they say, Ms. Greer, I don't understand. Well, at first I want you to identify the question, and once you do that, I'll come back. I want you then to identify what data or what it tells you or what you need to know to solve your problem. And by continually doing that, we bring value to Qdpac and we bring value to them because we are teaching them to be problem solvers, not just dependent on what we tell them the answer is, okay, or how to solve it. All right, so now that we kind of had the Qdpac talk out of the way, let me erase that. Now that we have the Qdpac talk out of the way, let's do a problem. All right, so this problem says the Aronson family had $235 to spend at Schlitterbahn for meals and souvenirs. They paid $56 for lunch and bought souvenirs for $104. how much money did the Aronson family have left at the end of the day? When I read problems with students, when I'm modeling for students, I teach them to read the problem first. And then we go back and we talk about things like, well, have you ever been to Schlitterbahn? What's a souvenir? Have you ever bought souvenirs before? Can somebody tell me what the problem is talking about or saying? What situation are they in? I ask students those questions because I'm trying to help them build comprehension about what the problem means. Then after we do that, we start talking about Qdpac, and we go directly to the question sentence. How much money did the Aronson family have left at the end of the day? Now, I do not want boys and girls writing the entire question sentence. That does not tell me they understand anything, and I, for one, would not want to do that either. So what I want them to do is pick out the 1, 2, or 3 words, a little short statement that tells them exactly what they are looking for in this problem. What are they trying to figure out? Well, in this instance, it's money left over. That's all students have to write. If they need to write anything else, that's fine. But it's about what they need to understand. They had money, they bought some stuff, and I want to know how much money that's left over. Before we leave the question sentence, I always ask students, is there any other information in the sentence that I need that's going to help me figure out how much money that the family had left over? And I always ask that question during every sentence, but especially during the question sentence, because sometimes there's other words in the question sentence I need to be cautious about, like best estimate, or about, or approximately. And sometimes the question sentence also contains data. For instance, if the question had said, if the family paid $104 for souvenirs, how much money did the family have left at the end of the day? I don't want to leave that question sentence without identifying the data that it has in there as well. Because once I leave a sentence, I don't want to come back to it. All right, so this question sentence does not have any other data. So we would then go to the top and we look at it sentence by sentence. The Aronson family had $235 to spend at Schlitterbahn for meals and souvenirs. And I would ask students, is there any information in that sentence that helps us determine the amount of money they would have left over? And I do that because I don't want students just to rush and just tell me 235, 104, and 56. They're just picking out numbers without understanding what they are. I want them to really think about it and go back to the question, do I need this data or not? Before we leave that question, I would always ask them, is there any other information in the sentence that we need to help us figure out how much money would be left over? No. So we go to the second sentence. They paid $56 for lunch and bought souvenirs for $104. Boys and girls, is there any information in that sentence I need that will help me figure out how much money the Aronson family had left over? Yes. We need to know they spent $56 and they spent, and you can put lunch, and they bought souvenirs for $104. You can just put an S for souvenirs, however you want students to do it. The less they write, the better, but you want them to write enough for understanding, okay? Once we leave that sentence, before we leave that sentence, I would say, boys and girls, is there any other information that would help us figure out the amount of money that was left over? No. Well, we're back to the question sentence, so we're good. So now we have to figure out what to do. I encourage you to have your students draw a pictorial model of the problem every single time. I would use part whole models and strip diagrams. Those are what I would use for them to draw. So I also want you to understand that these labels that we wrote, these are labels. It's $235. When I say 3 eggs, eggs is the label. It's what is that numerical amount talking about? Is it talking about $235, 235 eggs, 235 pieces of candy? What is it? These labels are very important in problem solving for students, because when I look at the question, I'm looking for money, and both of these, or all three of these amounts are in money. They have these same labels, all of it. So I know that I'm going to add, subtract, or do both. If one of these labels was different, I would know that I need to either multiply or divide. Even if one is different, I'm going to multiply or divide. So I know that I'm going to add or subtract automatically, and I'm not going to do this at all. Something else I tell students is when I have 3 pieces of data, any more than 2 actually, when I have more than 2 pieces of data, there's 2 things that are happening. One, I either have extra information or it's going to be a 2-step problem. So before I leave this part, I always talk to students and say, do I need to know they had a total of $235? Yes. Do I need to know they spent $56 in lunch? Yes. Do I need to know they spent $104 on souvenirs? Yes. So I need all of this information. So that tells me this is a 2-step problem. So then we can draw our picture. Now I'm going to draw a strip diagram, or it's also called a part-whole model in this instance. And I know I have a total of $235. I know I bought this for the lunch for $56, and I know I bought souvenirs for $104. But what I want to know is the amount of money that was left over. So students can solve this a couple ways. Students can say, well, Ms. Greer, I'm going to subtract and subtract. In other words, I'm going to take 235 minus 56, get an amount, and then minus 104. Perfectly acceptable. Or I'm going to add and I'm going to subtract. I'm going to take 56 plus 104, get that total, and subtract it from 235. Totally fine as well. That's the beauty in problem solving, is that there's multiple ways to attack a problem. So once students determine what they are going to do, then they solve and they get their answer. And I'm not going to take time for the sake of our video for that, but we write our answer. And then we check. Now, please do not let students do this, where they just place a check mark there. We're not having them do that. That doesn't mean they've done anything. There are 2 purposes to a check. The first one is, did I answer the question asked? Or as I call it, ATQA. Did I find out the amount of money the family had left over? If I did, great. I also want to check my computation. Did I make any errors adding and subtracting? And the way to check this is always tell students to solve a different way. If you subtracted, then I want you to try the addition and then subtraction way. But you need to make sure you get the answer in 2 ways so that you did not mess up the computation. All right, so that is a brief explanation of Qdpac and a brief example of Qdpac. Please let me know if you need one of us to come model Qdpac in your classroom,